I never thought I'd be that guy, you know. The guy who gets his world blown apart because of some girl's lies. My name's Mike and I was married to Lisa for almost 3 years. Things seemed pretty good on the surface. She was beautiful, smart, and seemed really into me. We had a good life, or at least I thought we did. I work in finance, she's a real estate agent, so we both had busy schedules, but we always made time for each other. Or so I believed. It all started about a month ago. Lisa had been acting a little off, more secretive than usual, just little things that I didn't really think about at first. She'd be on her phone a lot more, laughing at texts, quickly hiding her screen when I came into the room. She'd blow off plans or get defensive when I'd ask what she was doing. Nothing outright suspicious at the time, but I felt a weird tension building, like I was missing something important. Then, I noticed her phone was more or less glued to her hand. She'd go to the bathroom with it, keep it near her during dinner, even take calls. In the shower, that's when I started to get curious. I mean, who does that? It was like she was hiding something, but I didn't want to jump to conclusions. Still, I couldn't shake this feeling that something wasn't right. I'd ask her about her day and she'd brush me off, give me some dumb excuse, said she was working late or she had a big client to impress. I bought it for a while. Then came the night I proposed. We'd been talking about marriage for a while and I wanted to make it official. I planned this whole thing, took her to that fancy rooftop restaurant she loved, got the ring out of my pocket and asked her in front of the city lights. She cried, said yes, and I thought everything was perfect. I was on cloud nine. We were finally starting this new chapter and I couldn't have been happier, or so I thought. The very next day she was acting weird again. She was unusually tense, avoiding eye contact. I asked her what was wrong and she snapped at me, told me I was overthinking. That she was just stressed at work. I wanted to believe her. I really did. But then she left her phone on the counter when she ran to the grocery store. I couldn't help myself. I looked. I saw a ton of texts from a number I didn't recognize, all flirty, suggestive. It wasn't just casual chatting, it was flirtatious, full of plans to meet up, secret messages about spicing things up. I froze. My heart started pounding like crazy. I didn't want to jump to conclusions, but how could I not? I looked through her messages later that night while she was out at her sister. The texts kept going, more explicit, talking about what they did the night she suddenly had to go out of town last weekend. That's right, she lied about a trip to Vegas, claiming she was visiting her sister. But I found her hotel reservations and receipts for a gambling spree, drinks, dinners, things she never mentioned. My stomach sank. I felt sick, betrayed, like I'd been punched in the gut. How could she do this? Especially right after we got engaged. How could she lie to my face about a trip she had with my supposed best friend, Kevin? That's when I knew something was seriously wrong. The shock hit me like a freight train. I couldn't believe it. All those months she told me she was working late, visiting family or out of town, and she was actually somewhere with Kevin sharing that secret trip to Vegas. And she lied about it all. I kept staring at the phone, rereading those texts, trying to process what I was seeing. It was like my mind was trying to deny the truth, but deep down I knew I couldn't unsee what was right in front of me. I didn't sleep that night. The more I thought about it, the angrier I got. I felt stupid, so naive, so blind to her deception. How could she do this? We just announced our engagement and I was ready to spend the rest of my life with her. I thought she was the one. And now I see she's been lying to my face from day one, screwing my best friend behind my back. I kept wondering what I did wrong, if I missed the signs, if I ever really knew her at all. The next morning, I decided I had to confront her. I couldn't keep pretending everything was fine. I called her and she answered with that bitchy tone, like she was annoyed I was bothering her. I told her I knew about Vegas, about Kevin, everything, and her reaction. She started lying faster than I could blink, said I was paranoid, that I was crazy for thinking she'd cheat on me. She called me possessive and accused me of not trusting her. That's when I realized her whole attitude was just a mask, her way of deflecting, of avoiding the truth. She was so quick to lie, so dismissive, like she didn't care about the damage she'd done. I pressed her, asked her why she did it, how she could betray me like that on the night I proposed. Her answer: "You're just being paranoid. Kevin and I are just friends, it's not what you think." That's all she kept saying over and over. She had the nerve to say she was just having fun, that I was overreacting, and that I needed to get over myself. She even had the audacity to tell me I was lucky. She still stayed with me after everything. That's when I finally saw the true her, bitchy. Selfish, completely indifferent to how much she hurt me. I gotta admit, the shock turned into pure, raging anger. I felt like I'd been punched again, but this time in the chest. How could she do this? How could she lie and then act like I was the problem? I ended that call knowing I had to do something, but I didn't know what yet. I just knew I couldn't stay with her, not after this. I was broken, crushed, feeling like my whole world was falling apart. My trust was shattered, my future ripped away in seconds. I kept replaying everything. The lies, the sneers, the way she dismissed me like I was nothing. I was so furious at Kevin, too, for being part of it, for sneaking around behind my back like that. I felt betrayed from every direction. I sat there for hours, trying to piece everything together, trying to figure out what I was supposed to do now. I kept asking myself if I could even look at her the same way again. The woman I thought I knew was just a lying, manipulative bitch. The worst part, I still loved her, somewhere deep inside. I wanted to believe she'd tell me everything, that she'd come clean, but I knew better. I knew she'd never admit the truth. She'd just keep lying, keep pretending she was innocent, keep acting like she was the victim. And I was left standing there, feeling like I'd been sucker punched, trying to breathe through the pain. After that confrontation, everything changed. I couldn't look at her without feeling this storm of anger, betrayal, and heartbreak swirling inside me. The woman I had trusted, the woman I proposed to just days ago, was now a stranger, someone who lied to my face, cheated on me with my best friend, and then had the nerve to call me crazy when I found out. I didn't sleep that night, and honestly, I don't remember much of it. My mind kept spinning, replaying every moment, every word, every lie she'd told. The pain was so raw I thought I might actually go crazy. The next morning, I knew I had to make some decisions. I couldn't stay in this house, pretending everything was okay, pretending I wasn't crushed. I packed a bag, told her I was leaving for a few days to think. Walked out the door. My hands were trembling, my stomach in knots, and I felt like I was walking to my own execution. I didn't want to believe it, but I knew I couldn't stay with her anymore. Not after what I'd seen, not after what she'd done. I went to my buddy Dave's place. I needed to talk to someone who'd understand, someone I trusted. When I told him what I found out, his face went pale. He looked like he'd been punched. Kevin, my supposed best friend, had been screwing my wife. That was too much to process. Dave kept telling me I had to confront Kevin, ask him what the hell was going on. But honestly, I didn't even want to see Kevin anymore. How could I face him? How could I ever trust him again? The betrayal ran so deep I felt like I was drowning. In the days that followed, I realized I couldn't just let this go. I wanted revenge, clear, cold revenge. Not just some petty shouting match or breakup, but something that would make her realize what she'd lost. The more I thought about it, the clearer it became. I needed to make her feel the same pain she'd inflicted on me. That's when I started planning. I didn't want her to get away with it, and I sure as hell didn't want Kevin thinking he could get away with screwing over his best friend. I needed to make them both pay. The first move was gathering evidence, but not just the typical stuff. I knew her phone and messages were compromised, so I started digging around her social media accounts, her emails, everything I could find. I wanted proof she was still lying, still sneaking around. Then I started talking to some of her other friends, just casually trying to figure out if she'd been hiding other things from me. Turns out she had a reputation, perfect on the outside, but a total bitch behind closed doors. I heard she'd been seen flirting with some guy at that charity event last month, and she'd lied about that too. Every piece of information just fueled my anger. She was a liar, a cheater, a manipulator. And I was done being her fool. I knew I had to do something big, something unforgettable. I started thinking about how she'd lied for months, how she'd hurt me so badly I wasn't sure I could ever recover. And I also thought about Kevin, how he'd betrayed me too. I wanted to confront them both, but I knew I had to be smart about it. I wanted her to feel exposed, humiliated, and most of all, hurt, just like she made me feel. I wanted her to understand that her actions came with consequences. And that's when I decided I'd take my revenge in a way she wouldn't see coming. It was time she knew what it felt like to be played, to be lied to be betrayed. She thought she could get away with it all, but I was going to make sure she paid. Over the next few days, I kept planning, turning over every detail in my mind. I wasn't just going to confront her and yell. I wanted her to understand the depth of what she did. I wanted her to see that her lies and betrayal had consequences far worse than I ever let her imagine. I started by creating a detailed timeline of her lies, dates, places, the people involved, so that when I finally confronted her, I'd have everything crystal clear. I also collected some evidence of her ongoing flirtations, just enough to make her realize that she'd been caught in her own web of deception. It wasn't just about revenge anymore. It became about making her understand how deeply she'd wounded me. Honestly, I was furious, but I also felt a strange clarity, like I was finally seeing her for what she really was, a bitchy, manipulative liar who thought she could get away with anything. That's when I started thinking about how to make her feel the same pain I was carrying. I wasn't interested in some petty drama or shouting match. I wanted her to believe that her actions had shattered everything we built. Finally, I decided it was time to act. I invited her over for what I told her was a serious talk. I told her I needed answers, that I couldn't keep pretending everything was fine. She showed up, looking annoyed as usual. I could see her trying to put on her innocent face, but I wasn't buying it. I laid everything out, showed her the texts, the receipts, the timeline I'd built. Her face twisted into a range of expressions, defiance, anger, confusion, but I could see the panic creeping. She realized I wasn't bluffing. Then I hit her with the truth she'd been dodging. I told her I knew about Vegas, about Kevin, about everything. Her reaction. She cussed me out, told me I was delusional, that I was crazy for thinking she'd cheat. She kept insisting she was innocent, that I was just jealous, that Kevin was just a friend, and that I needed to get over myself. She called me insecure, controlling, and told me I'd ruin everything if I kept digging. I could see her trying to manipulate her way out of it, but I wasn't falling for her tricks anymore. The shock on her face was satisfying, but what really hit home was how she suddenly looked helpless, like she was losing control of the situation. She kept saying she was done with Kevin, that she'd never do it again, that I was crazy for thinking she'd be unfaithful. I told her she could keep lying, but I had enough evidence to bury her if I wanted. That's when I saw her get defensive, then angry, then bitter. She spat at me, called me a jealous fool, said I was overreacting, and stormed out of the house in a fury. I watched her leave, feeling that strange mixture of satisfaction and devastation. I'd finally exposed her lies, but at what cost? My heart was breaking, but I knew one thing: this was just the beginning of the real fallout. After she left, I sat in silence for a while, trying to process everything. Part of me felt victorious. Finally, I had her cornered. Finally, she couldn't lie her way out of this mess. But another part of me was hollow, crushed by the realization that my trust was gone, that the woman I loved had betrayed me in the worst way possible. I kept thinking about the proposal, the promises, the future I'd envisioned, all of it undone in a matter of hours. I wasn't just angry, I was devastated. I never thought I'd be one of those guys who'd get played like this, who'd get his heart shattered in broad daylight. Over the next few days, I watched her behave differently, cold, distant, angry, like she was trying to save herself from the fallout she knew was coming. Meanwhile, I kept digging. I needed to make sure I had everything in order before I made my next move. I contacted some of her friends, people she trusted, and got more details about her ongoing lies. Turns out, she'd been sneaking around for a while, flirting with other guys, going to secret parties, lying about her whereabouts. Each new piece of information made me realize that her betrayal was deeper than I initially thought. I also started thinking about what I wanted to do next. Honestly, part of me wanted to destroy her, make her feel the way she made me feel, maybe even worse. But I also knew I had to be careful. I wanted her to see the consequences of her actions clearly, not just be blindsided by some petty revenge. So I devised a plan, one that would hit her where it hurts, but also give me some closure. I wanted her to finally understand that she couldn't get away with this, that her lies had consequences. The plan involved a slow reveal. I prepared some evidence I hadn't shown her yet, messages, emails, receipts, and I decided I'd confront her again, but differently this time. I wanted her to get a taste of her own medicine. I scheduled a talk at her place, making sure I had everything ready to lay it all out. When she arrived, I started calmly but firmly, showing her everything I'd uncovered. Her face started to pale as I laid it all out, her ongoing sexts, the secret meetings, the lies about her whereabouts. She tried to deny, to justify, but I cut her off, telling her I knew everything, that her betrayal wasn't just a mistake, it was a choice she made repeatedly. Her reaction: she screamed, called me crazy, yelled that I was harassing her and that I was obsessed. But I could see the panic behind her eyes, the panic of someone who knows she's losing control. I told her if she kept lying, I'd expose everything to her friends, her family, everyone. That I'd make sure she paid for her lies, for destroying what little trust we had left. And in that moment, I saw her for what she really was, a manipulative, selfish bitch who never cared about me or our relationship. That realization hit hard. I was hurt, I was angry, but I felt a strange sense of empowerment, knowing I finally had the upper hand. That night I left, knowing I'd done everything I could. I didn't want to stay and watch her spin her web of lies anymore. I knew I had to decide whether to fight for this relationship or walk away for good. Honestly, I was leaning toward walking away. I couldn't be with someone who lied so easily, who played me like a fool, but part of me still hoped she'd come clean, admit everything, and maybe, just maybe, I'd find a way to forgive her. The pain was still fresh. Either way, I knew I wouldn't be the same after this. Nothing would ever be the same again. In the days that followed, I kept a safe distance from her. Every time I saw her, I felt this mix of rage and sadness boiling inside me. I couldn't believe I'd fallen for her lies for so long, or that she'd betray me at the worst possible moment, right after I proposed, right when I thought we were about to start a real life together. The trust we'd built was shattered beyond repair. I realized I was holding onto something that was already gone, and that no amount of apologies or explanations could fix what she'd broken. I moved out of the house, not just because I needed space, but because I needed to take back control of my life. Going back to the place where everything happened felt like a betrayal to myself. So I stayed with a friend for a while, trying to process what had happened. I kept replaying that night, her lies, Kevin's betrayal, and how I'd been so blind. The pain stayed with me, but I also felt a strange sense of relief. At least now I knew the truth. And truth, no matter how bitter, is always better than lies. Looking back, I realized this whole experience taught me some hard lessons. First, no matter how perfect someone seems, sometimes they're not. Second, never ignore your gut. If something feels off, it probably is. And third, trust is fragile. Once broken, it's almost impossible to fully rebuild. I also learned that revenge, while tempting, doesn't always bring peace. But it does give you a sense of justice, of finally standing up for yourself after being wronged so badly. I don't hate her. I won't lie, I still feel a sting of pain, but I also feel a sense of liberation. I learned that I'm stronger than I thought, and that I deserve honesty and respect. For anyone going through something similar, trust your instincts. Don't be afraid to confront the truth, and remember, you're worth more than someone who cheats on you or lies to your face. I may never fully recover from this heartbreak, but I know I'll come out of it stronger. And someday, I'll find someone who values me for who I am, not for how much she can get away with.